According to the 2024 Arctic report card from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the country of my birth, the Arctic is now a source of carbon. This report card was released late last year. It has additional information, all of which is expected by those of us paying attention to climate change, its drivers, and its impacts. As I have reported many times in this space, the Arctic is the planetary air conditioner. What happens in the Arctic indicates what's ahead for our planet. The Arctic's rapid warming is a harbinger of our future. For example, the Arctic continues to warm at a much faster rate than the global average. How much? Depending upon the source, the rate of warming in the Arctic is 2 to 4 times faster than the global average. I suspect these sources are scientifically conservative, suggesting that the Arctic might be warming more than 4 times faster than the global average. Various kinds of geoengineering have been proposed as solutions to the rapidly warming Arctic, as well as the rapidly warming planet. The European Union has studied the idea and finds it lacking. As indicated via a headline at The Guardian on December 9, 2024, EU should ban space mirrors and other solar geoengineering, scientists say. The subhead hints at the problem associated with trying to geoengineer our way out of this mess. Quote, European Commission scientific advisors say technology to offset global heating could wreak havoc on weather. End quote. The first 3 paragraphs of the story in The Guardian provide a good overview of the problem and its proposed solution. Quote, Europe should ban space mirrors, cloud whitening, and other untested tools being touted to reflect the sun's rays, the European Commission's scientific advisors have said, but said the door should be left open for research into their development. The scientists said the risks and benefits of solar radiation modification, also known as solar geoengineering, were highly uncertain. They called for an EU-wide moratorium on using it as a way to offset global heating. Solar radiation modification technologies can cool the planet by reducing the amount of sunlight hitting the Earth. Supporters say they should be studied as global temperatures shoot ever closer to the limit of 1.5 C, above pre-industrial levels that world leaders promised to stick to. End quote. As I've indicated many times in this space, 1.5 C is behind us. In fact, 2 C is behind us, according to the governments of the world. This conclusion was reached in October 2023. As expected, corporate media outlets continue to mislead the public about the evidence. As I have also indicated many times in this space, 2C above the 1750 baseline is irrelevant. This number, proposed by an economist, is double the 1C number indicated by the Advisory Group on Greenhouse Gases, the predecessor to the IPCC. Again, the Design to Fail IPCC, created during the Ronald Reagan administration, uses information intended to pacify the masses rather than present reliable, actionable information. The article in The Guardian continues, quote, Critics argue that geoengineering does not address the root problem of heat-trapping pollutants that smother the Earth, making them at best a temporary fix while they are in use, and say they could also wreak havoc on the weather. End quote. The Guardian continues by quoting the chair of the European Group on Ethics in Science and New Technologies. Quote, Even if some of these proposals could address the symptoms of climate change, they do not address the cause. Presenting them as solutions could damage the efforts that are already underway to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change. End quote. That final sentence is unintentionally humorous. Quote, Presenting them as solutions could damage the efforts that are already underway to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change. End quote. Efforts that are, quote, already underway to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change, end quote, are failing miserably. According to the Design to Fail IPCC, Earth is amid the most rapid change in planetary history, and this change is irreversible. In other words, our collective efforts, quote, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change, end quote, are failing. NOAA's Arctic report card was created by 97 scientists from 11 countries. It includes lands and seas of the northern polar region. The primary findings include 1, quote, continuing high air temperatures and wildfires, end quote. 2, quote, declines of large inland caribou herds, end quote. And 3, quote, increasing precipitation, including rain-on-snow events that coat the landscape in an icy shell, making travel difficult for people and foraging difficult for wildlife, end quote. In response to the release of the Arctic Report Card, its lead editor and deputy lead scientist at the U.S. National Snow and Ice Data Center said, quote, this year's report demonstrates the urgent need for adaptation as climate conditions quickly change. Indigenous knowledge and community-led research programs can inform successful responses to rapid Arctic changes, end quote. As climate change continues to accelerate, we have already lost the ability to mitigate for climate change. We continue to demonstrate that resilience is an inadequate response. Without viable means of mitigation and resilience, we are left with adaptation. At this point, I suspect adaptation refers only to individuals. It's far too late to convince uninterested government officials and media personalities that we must make relevant changes to our lives. In addition, I suspect most people are interested primarily in securing and retaining material possessions. Personal comfort, here and now, drives our individual responses. It seems sacrifices are for other people.